So I just want to make a quick video on my 2004 CTS-V. Getting it ready for the drag strip at the end of this month on the 27th. It'll be the first time this season out with the car. And last year I took it down the track 3 times and I got to a 10.8 at 134, which was kind of my goal. The car was around mid-10s before with the previous owner, so I just wanted to get to that point and drive it home. So once I hit the 10.8, figured that was good enough. It wasn't broken and I wanted to drive it home. But this year, I want to hit 9s. I think the car has it. It's just a matter of fact if I can get it there. I'll go over it really quick, just some of the quick and simple things. So it has a Gen 4 5.3. The bottom end is stock. It has been opened up. As far as I know, the ring gaps have been widened. It's got ARP bolts pretty much everywhere that you would need it. The intake is stock, the heads are stock. The valves and the lifters and the springs are upgraded along with the camshaft. It's got chromoly push rods, but from the heads down, it's a stock block. Let's see, up here, it's got 1300cc injectors. It has water methanol injection here. I bought the car the way it is now. Pretty much as you see it, other than, I think the only thing I've done is I've changed the oil a few times, changed the spark plugs. I added the sleeves. This side has a heat wrap on the headers. There was some maintenance done on this other side, I don't know if you can see, and the heat wrap was not put up back on, and so it was beginning to burn a couple of the plug wires. And so I figured while I was doing spark plugs, I would also do plug wires and install the heat shielding on them. The cool custom things up here, it's got a custom size aluminum radiator. So this right here is just for the power steering fluid, and the rest of this tank is a catch can. So you have the breather tubes coming in here. I believe this is one back to the intake. And it's got 2 filters on it. It's got a pepcock, a little drain at the bottom. I've drained it once, really didn't have that much in it. I'll drain it again before I go do my pass. That way I can keep track of, like, after so many runs, see how much it's actually, how much blow by it has. Other than that, it's got on the front, this side, the fog lights have been replaced. This side is the oil cooler, I believe, and on the other side is the transmission cooler. And the only leak on the entire car is one of these lines is barely dripping, and it's just, I can see it on the bottom, on the back side of the bumper, and then underneath the engine and transmission as it's making its way back. So I think before, I've got 4 weeks, little less than 4 weeks. So I think today what I'm going to do is pop both front tires off, wheels and tires, just to check the front suspension, check the brakes. I haven't been under this car very much, so for me, I just want to make sure it's super easy just to put eyes on some nuts and bolts, make sure everything's in place. I may pop the front bumper off and check that line. I've tried to tighten it from underneath before. I may just pop it off and try to put it back on and see if that fixes it, or see if I can see a noticeable spot where it's leaking, but it's the tiniest amount, so I hope it just needs to be tightened. Let's see, we went over the engine. So this was, as you may know from the factory, a 6-speed car, but it has a apparently stage 4 4L80E. So I've got a trans brake, and then along with that trans brake at the same time, I have the 2-step that helps me build boost. It's got a 3600 stall in it, and so it gets up there in the RPM and actually comes on the boost fairly quickly. And the reason it needs that two-step is the turbos are located in the rear. I've got two precision, I believe they're 58 millimeter turbos. And the way that works is headers, exhaust to the turbos. From the turbos piping back underneath to my intercooler under here. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it. Intercooler up to the side to the front of the engine. For oiling, it has an oil feed off of the oil filter to the back. It has its own, the turbos have their own oil filter and a scavenger pump which pumps the return oil back into the pan. Now that scavenger pump keeps the pressure off of the turbos so they don't build oil pressure and blow the seals out. And while we're in the rear, see if I can get you underneath. You don't know if you're gonna be able to see it. I'll get under there in a little bit. It has a Ford 8.8 independent differential. So it's independent suspension like stock, except for the stock diff was the Achilles heel of the car. The cradles for them weren't the most secure thing. And so this has a cradle brace, the Ford 8.8. It's got 411 gears and a true track in the rear. Now it has a fairly beefy aluminum drive shaft, and then the rear drive shafts are some, I can't remember the brand. Apparently they're good for about 1,000 horsepower, wheel horsepower, and that matches the transmission. It's apparently built for about 1,200. Currently, I drive the car around town at about 10 psi. It's still a little too much for the street, especially when it's not hot out and the tires aren't hot. But it's anything less than that, the car just doesn't feel right. It may be the methanol injection. It's only, I don't know the size of the jet, so I think it's set to turn on at about 7 psi. But I believe it's tuned for probably somewhere in the 13 or 14 psi with the equivalent amount of methanol. So I think if I run, let's say like 10 psi for very long, it's too much methanol for the air. I don't know. That's just what I'm guessing. I don't have a computer plugged in yet. I don't have anything data logged. I do have a wideband in here, which I think I need to replace the O2 sensor. 90% of the time it just reads way lean. If I cycle the key, I can get it to read correctly. And it reading fine. It shows perfect air to fuel ratio when it's working. I just got to figure out why it's not working, because I believe I'm going to be turning it up a little bit higher than what it's been at before. My last run last year, I turned it up and ended up seeing 18 psi, and now that's at the top of third. I've got boost by gear, and so that was only in third gear. It felt good, looked good. The plugs afterwards looked fine. So if push comes to shove, I may be able to turn that up in second gear also. Run 18 psi in second and third. Whereas before, I think I was only running like 12 in second, 7 psi in first, and it was really leaving. I didn't have the two-step set up correctly, and so it was only leaving at like maybe a pound of boost. My plans are to hopefully at the launch leave at somewhere between 5 and 8 psi, and then bring in all the power by second gear, not ramping it in. So what I need to get done before I go to the drag strip is fix the one line that's leaking, inspect the front end, the drive shafts, the U joints. So I'm going to lay eyes on everything, make sure nothing's loose. I am going to buy new tires for it. They're not horrible. They are pretty horrible. They've had, I think, 2 hard seasons on them. They've got tread left, but age-wise, I think they're seeing some wear. And really, for the money, I think this is going to be my weak link. Is going to be the tire. It's only a 275. I believe the stock wheels are 8.5 inches wide, and Cadillac on the CTS-V has a funny 6-lug pattern, so it's hard to find any aftermarket wheels, let alone like a race wheel, unless I want to do a lug conversion, and I'm not. I like the look of it stock wheels on this thing. It's one thing that drew me to this car was the fact that hood down on the ground, you couldn't tell that it's you know, almost 750 horse. As of right now, a 10-second street car. I've got the inside tore up a little bit. The dash is, center console's kind of out of it. There's some wiring I need to take care of. I just want to button it up. It was installed just to be a test, and it ended up just being left that way. And so I need to make proper connections, run it not through the fender, but through the firewall. I need to mount my fire extinguisher. I'm probably going to grab a second one this size, or one that's just bigger. I'm a firm believer of you can't have, you're never going to be complaining about too much fire extinguisher if something happens. The shifter, it's a ratchet shifter. It's an automatic. It's set up where in first gear is when the trans brake and the 2-step activates by the button on top of the shifter. So both the 2-step and the trans brake are, I hold this down, I hold the brakes, I can build my boost, and the second I let off this button, it all trans brake turns off, 2-step turns off, and I go. So I just want to go over this wiring, make sure, get rid of these crimp connectors. I have actual plugs. It'd be nice to set this up where right now, if I wanted to take this all the way out, I'd have to cut these wires and cut these connectors. I can undo this one, but I have to cut those two. It'd be nice to set these all up on a plug so I can unplug it, pull everything. If I wanted to switch out the shifter or take out the center console in the future. Otherwise, in here, that's about it. And really, that's not anything that's needed. It's just one thing that's always bugged me slightly about the car. People getting in and out and having this wire here. That is not, like I said, it's not anything that needed to be done, but I'm here. I've got time for now, so that's what I'll do. Other than that, like I said, I think I'm just gonna yank the front tires off. So what I was looking for is, the rotor looks good. There's no lip. It actually looks like it almost has no miles on it. There's no big grooves in it. The pads are probably 85%, if not more. So whoever did the pads last probably put a new rotor on it. The other side looks the same way. Both of them spin fine. The brakes are just dragging just a hair. There's no noise from the hubs. The bushings look fine. The steering, that's the rotor moving, but there's no play in it. And on the steering wheel, there's a little bit, just a little bit of steering play, but It must be in the steering box, maybe, because the car doesn't wander at all. It just has a little bit of play in the steering wheel. Nothing I'm too worried about. If you can take a look in here. I don't know if you're going to be able to see very well, but it's all aluminum pipe from the turbochargers in the back. Here it is right here. It's all flat square pipe. It's custom made to give it the least amount of ground clearance, or the most amount of ground clearance possible, while maintaining some volume. I'd say that's probably 4 to 5 inches wide by like 1.5 inches, 2 inches tall. So it's a pretty decent volume of air moving up. And then you can see it changes over from that as a coupler to go to the intercooler. Here is the back side of that transmission cooler. It's dry underneath. This is definitely not the one that's leaking. Let's go to the other side. See if I can get some light. So this one is the transmission, or the oil cooler on this side. And as you can see underneath, it's a little bit shiny. It just has the smallest, it's got dirt, from dirt clinging to the oil that's been leaking out of it. And it's obviously not that upper hose, it's this bottom one. They're AN fittings. I don't know, now that I can get a good look at it, it may be the connection between the hose and the fitting. I'll have to take it apart. Maybe I'll take it down to our local speed shop. I've never done those fittings before. Maybe I'll just see if he can reconnect it, just redo the fitting. Should be an easy enough fix. The hose is dry up above, so it's not leaking up there. This is just something I've been meaning to. Been doing it the whole time I've had the car. It's not bad enough to really cause a problem, but you can see, like, get in a better position. I can give you some light. Like here, it's shiny. It's just been blowing oil back underneath the car. So it'd be nice to get that taken care of. What else is under here? The one blow-off valve in the car is tucked up under here. Everything looks good. So I'll try to get underneath and I'll show you the rest of the turbo system. All right. Garage is a little bit of a mess. So there's the dual exhaust, the headers. I see now why my O2 sensor has been reading way lean. I'm not sure if that broken O2 sensor on that side, if you can see it on the collector, looks like it's got a hole in it. I'll have to pop that off and see. I may have to just go buy a bung or a plug and thread it in there. If that's just my problem, that'd be super nice. But the other thing I'm going to take a look at while I'm under here is my fuel filter. I'm going to get that popped off, taken apart. Make sure it's just cleaned off before. It's been sitting all winter. I've driven it. I try to drive it once a month, but they're not long drives. And I'm limited to only sunny days. Really, if there's puddles on the ground, I try not to drive it, and I'll show you why. Back under here are the turbos. There's one right here. The other one is on the other side. And the wastegates are in the center. You can see them, it's just a dump straight out. And so these are the filters under the car. It's the only thing that worries me about the car is, or the only thing that's stopping me from driving it when it's raining or when it's been raining, is going through semi-deep puddles and having it just suck water. But there is the dirty diff, and I'll see if I can get behind it and show you the cradle that is holding it in. It's hard to make out, but it's there's the exhaust tips. In between the exhaust tips is the diff, and you can kind of make out the red cradle that's holding the diff in place. Other than that, back here it has coilovers. I believe they're two-way adjustable. Back in there, I am on the Mickey Thompson Street SS's. I wasn't able to really use them. Like I said last year, I did a 1.7 60 foot, and that was leaving at like 0 psi. I can put it in the video. It wasn't that hard of a launch. These have already had, I believe, 2 seasons of racing on them. So they held up. They do on the street. They're fantastic. When it's damp out, they're drivable. I can get into the power. It'll spin, but it's not crazy. It's not like it just lets go. So they're not horrible. Not the best, not horrible. They are sticky. They do pick up every rock, everything down the road. But I am getting a new pair of these. I was going to go with the Mickey Thompson makes a R series tire instead of the SS. It doesn't have the channels. It just has some slots in the center. It's a much more race radial. This is probably more street oriented of a radial tire, of a drag radial, that is. But the sizes that they come in won't work for that tire. That's the tire that would work, or they don't work with that wheel. The tire that would work for the wheel is going to be 2 inches shorter, and I don't want to mess with the Speedos. Like spot on. I believe the profile from the front to the rear tire, they're the same height, and so just for looks and handling, these are the tires that are on it. I eventually want to go to a more street or a more strip oriented tire, but given I haven't found I haven't had an issue with those the way they are, getting new ones will be an improvement just the way it is. So what's next? I think next, I've never popped this bumper off, so I'm going to look it up really quick on how to do it. Obviously the inner fender, some of it's removed, so it should be quite easy. Probably just some clips. Yep, probably just some clips up here. But I want to get this front off to see if I can get easier access to that hose, and then just double check these fittings, make sure they are running through the frame and tight. Things are just tight. I just want to make sure nothing's rubbing. Hoses aren't going to become a problem. Like I said, really nothing's leaking on this car yet, but I just want to give it like a health check before I turn it up to be more than what it's ever seen before. Like here, you can see it's just the heat shielding that's rubbed through, but you can tell it must just barely, the motor must lean over on this side when it's on the trans brake or in the power. It must just barely clock over and rub against this bracket. That I'm not worried about because it's not into the header. It's not really causing any damage. So I want to get this front bumper off. We'll go from there. So the bumper's off. Now this is my first time seeing the car like this, just like you guys. So like I said before, trans cooler, intercooler, oil cooler. So it's like the cooler for the power steering, and then the aluminum radiator back behind here. Now, I believe this is the ECU right here. Let's see. Obviously, it's had some electrical work, some wiring work done to it, probably to add when they were tuning it. This is what I wanted to check. Make sure all these couplers, I can feel around it. They don't feel torn. It doesn't feel like it's rubbing on anything. The coolers look fine. There's no big, this one's been dented before, but I know it still holds boost. So it's for the most part fine. Someone's already painted black, so it's got custom ends on either side, or at least here. It's got a custom 90 on it. It's been welded up, it's been painted. Now, it's not the prettiest thing, but that's not what that's not at all what I'm worried about. I just want to make sure everything's physically fine. Let's see. Someone's added a piece of hose under this, probably the bare metal strip here, to keep it from being sharp. These fittings look fine though. So here I was just looking. You see these holes? They look super bad. Looks like something has hit the radiator. But what I believe that is somebody mounted a fan. I actually have one of these straps somewhere. They're like a zip tie. You shove them through the fins, and so you can attach a fan to the radiator. That's what it looks like, because there's, like I said, there's one there, there's one there, there's one here, and one here. So maybe they had a fan on the front, or they attached it to the back. But aluminum will bend like this well before it breaks. So it's one thing that's really cool about this car. I've driven it when it's 100 degrees outside, sitting in traffic, cruising. It doesn't even, it stays at the 190-ish or around 190. I've never seen it start to creep up or anything. All right, so let's pop underneath, and I want to take out my wideband O2 sensor that I'm trying to track down why sometimes it'll read perfect, and then other times it'll just show lean all the time. So we can get you a good view. So under here, oh, that light is in the wrong spot. So up under here, on the headers, we have a O2 sensor here for the passenger side, and an O2 sensor up here for the driver's side. And that's for the ECU to see. But I have a third one here. I believe this is my wideband. It's the odd one out of the group. So this just goes to the wideband gauge up on the dash. And right now it's just for me to look at to see it's a health check. It'll let me know if the engine's leaning out or getting too rich. It's just a diagnostic tool for me now. Originally it's a tuning tool but I'm not tuning the car. And for whatever reason, there's another one here that's broken off. I believe bigger 3/4. I'll have to go grab a socket. But I don't know if that's plugged all the way. It looks like there's a little hole in the center, so that may be causing a little bit of a exhaust leak. And if it is, it might be close enough to a wideband to mess with it. So it's getting false readings. So I want to pop that one off, and I'll just order a plug for this side. and I'm gonna pop this one off, and odds are I'm just gonna order a replacement wideband O2 sensor. If that doesn't fix it, I'll have to look into make sure the wiring's good. But that's what I'm gonna start with. Okay, so unplugged the sensor side of the cable, and I have a socket designed for O2 sensors that goes over the wire, has an open side, and really just needs to be enough to crack it loose. I'm trying to keep the cable straight. Try to be careful not to drop these. This one's looking pretty dirty. Take it out and have a look. In the light, it may be hard for you to tell. It doesn't look horrible, but I think I'm just going to replace it anyways. It's the simplest fix to my problem. The cable's not torn, it's not burnt through by sitting on the exhaust or anything. So I don't know how. I have methanol injection, and I'm not sure how that affects the longevity of an O2 sensor. I am just running regular pump gas on top of that. So really, like I said, this will be my easiest fix for now. Get one of these replaced. Try to buy the exact same one. This one is says made in Germany, so is it a Bosch? No, I'm not seeing a brand on it, but it has a part number on it, so I'll look it up. That way hopefully I don't have to recalibrate the gauge up on the dash. But as far as today goes, I think that'll be it. Hopefully the next, I'll probably have one more video, maybe when we go to get the tires put on, when they get here. We'll button up the front, put it on the ground, lift the back up, take the tires off. I just want to check the play in the diff. Nothing fancy, I just want to feel it. I just want to roll it over in neutral and make sure there's nothing, I'm not feeling any binding or not hearing any bad noise. I don't hear anything while driving, but I just want to put my hands on it. Other than that, and this, the video after that should be me at Woodburn Drag Strip. I bought my tickets today, so hopefully by the end of March this thing will be closer to running 9s. Like I said, my last fastest pass was a 10.8 at 134. It was 134 or something, with a 1.7 60 foot. And at the very least, I just want to cut that 60 foot down. This has the parts that can take it. As long as the rear suspension, I don't know what the geometry of the rear suspension is like. I don't know if it's set up like a stock alignment or if it's actually set up for the radials. It's not gonna make a huge difference, but that I'm not sure of. The guy before me did drag race this a lot last season, and I'm pretty sure the season before, and so I don't want to change anything in the suspension until it becomes a problem. I think it's a good baseline right now, and I know for sure I could mess it up. It's probably anything I do is going to mess it up versus making it better. So I'd rather get the car running, get it into the 9s, and then if it'll get to the 9s on this setup, I'm just going to leave the rear alone. Obviously, if I run 9s or I think 1 more mile an hour at 135 in the quarter, I think they're going to kick me out. I don't have a cage. And there's a small list of other things I would need. I as of right now, I don't think I'd ever put a cage in this car yet. So getting it to run 9s would be great. Then I can just, it'd be nice to do that once. Subscribe if you want to see more. I've got older random videos of my past cars. I've got one other video of this car. Go check them out and have a good day.